The first two horses was strength, which we spoke about. And then part of courage is also strength, some little bit overlap between strengths. And then Viveka. So here we saw already Vivek last week, the ability to discriminate. And then, yeah, our mind is a very interesting equipment. It's the most powerful equipment, and it's also the trickiest because it's like so many things can go wrong and you don't know. Actually, today, like that's true with so many things. Like the phone goes wrong, you don't know how to fix it. Or maybe that's just my generation. But otherwise, equipments follow a certain model and term. But the mind has such a vast scope of how it works, how it doesn't work, how it malfunctions or doesn't work on optimum capacity. So there's a story about a man whose wife had become really, really ill. And so she already knew that she was going to be dying soon. And so she had held her husband's hand and said, I love you so much, and I can't bear to think that you will be with anyone else. And in the Christian tradition, they believe they'll meet up there again in heaven. So, when you come to heaven, I should still be your wife and there shouldn't be anyone else. Actually, that would be tricky, no? Like you go to the afterlife and if it's just a continuation of here, then like, oops, now I have two wives who I lived with or whatever, like, but in Hinduism, we have no such problem. We have every life new clean slate. And so you start again. But following this sentiment, she, like you have to promise me that, you'll remain true to me only, and then you will meet me in the afterlife. And so, of course, when a loved one is unwell, you're going to definitely promise. And probably he meant it at that moment in time. But as years passed after her death, he became very lonely, and he did, try and keep himself busy. But then he did meet someone, and then he did fall in love, and then they were engaged and they were getting married. And so the moment he started dating this person who he had very genuine feelings about, at night he would dream about his wife. And she would, completely be scolding him. You did this and you did that, and you held her hand and you said this, and then you felt like this. And he would wake up in the morning feeling so terribly guilty. But, like it torn now between the affection for this new woman and then this promise that he made to the wife. And so he went to the priest and he said, please help me. I don't know how to, appease her. And then he was saying, so, we went to this restaurant and she knew which restaurant, she knew what I ordered. She knew that, I gave an extra tip just to impress the woman, and that she knows everything. And then the priest said, wow, she's such a clever ghost. And he, yeah, I'm telling you, she's like such a clever ghost. And the priest said, okay, well, and then he took maybe marble, stones, pebbles, mint, I don't know what it was. Let's say mints. And he took a handful and then he looked at it and he put it into a pouch and he tied up the pouch. And he said, tonight when your ghost appears, then tell her you will call off the engagement and wedding and you will not marry this other woman if she can answer this question correctly. And he was like, this is what's your question? How many mints did I put in this bag? Now, so he's like, but I don't know. And he's like, but the bag's with you. So after she gives you the answer, you can open and you can check. He says, okay. And, because he was so torn between all the feelings, even though this didn't sound like a very ideal situation, he goes along with it. And sure enough, that night, the ghost of his ex-wife had appeared. And he very courageously said, if you can answer this question, I will not marry the other women. How many mints are in this pouch? And she went absolutely silent. And then she disappeared. And he thought, how powerful is this priest? And he can make the ghost disappear. And she didn't argue and she didn't scold me and she didn't torment me that night. And so the next morning, he, with a very big donation and, heartfelt gratitude, he was uh, so appeased, like, free, so felt so released from this. And he's like, how did you do it? What did you put in the bag? What's so magical in this bag that it got rid of her? And the priest said, actually, it was just that you didn't know the answer. And so the ghost, who's nothing but your own mind, was tormenting you with details you knew. But the minute you asked something you didn't know, she couldn't answer. And it's your guilt that is causing this. No actual ghost there. And so mind, Vivek, this quality of Vivek, is to be able to understand when the mind is tricking us. Ultimately, that's what the quality of Vivek is, to know the difference between real and unreal. Right? To be able to think logically and clearly. And the priest listening to this gentleman realized that the wife knew all the details because he knew all the details. And so this apparent ghost is nothing but his own guilt that can make the mind work in so many ways. And so if you think about a chariot, and if you think about the horses taking the chariot forward, really our ability to have this reasoning does make us go forward. Otherwise, how stuck we'd be in, just doing the same thing again and again and again and again. Then just recently when I started using one of these AI apps, and then it did half of it, and then I was going to go and do it. And then the person showing is like, no, you can ask it to do it only for you. The app can do that. You're like, oh, we can get so stuck in a certain way of thinking. Right? Vivek is the to know that your mind is getting stuck, to know that the mind is creating an obstacle, to know that the mind is. And how will we know? It's actually very simple. Are we at peace? If not, the mind is playing some trick on you or the other. Because actually our nature is Purnatva, Shanti, Ananda. And so if we're not feeling that, it's the mind running some havoc or the other. So anyway, sorry, I was saying that we don't go forward, right? So unless we understand that the mind itself is blocking us, we can't go forward. This will happen sometimes even with desires, and we self-sabotage. And so we feel like we're not going forward. And Vivek is this quality where we understand we're doing that to our mind. Or we have super romantic notions about things. Vivek, when you say the ability to know the difference between real and unreal, one of the biggest is unreals. I know that's not correct English, but anyways, is this romantic notion we have about things. Yeah. A way that maybe we think a relationship will be, or even a way we think our career will be, or the way we think like a house will be, the way we think we have very romantic. And so literally I'm saying unreal. These romantic notions are unreal. They don't exist. So, I mean, of course, you can be beautifully happy in a relationship, and you can be beautifully happy in a career, but the romantic notions are unreal, and they maybe sometimes just exaggerated, and like there can be essences of the truth in there. Like the other person can be very supportive of you, but then we have such an exaggerated understanding of how supportive they're going to be of us. Like, of course, they're going to have their own bad days, and of course, there's going to be things they don't agree with. And so, again, romantic notions. And Vivek is this ability to see clearly, unreal, unrealistic. Yeah. So, Bala, Vivek. Dhamma. Dhamma is the quality of self control. Now, interesting, because if you see the Vedantic journey, then three qualities are given: Shama, Dhamma, and Uparama. And so all of them are self-control with little bit nuances of difference of the kind of self-control it is. So the typical example given is, if I'm really angry and then I slap you, and then that was zero self-control. But let's say I get really angry, but I'm able to control and not actually slap, but I'm still furious. So then one level is, that's Dhamma, physical control. The second level is, and I wouldn't even say anything, control over speech. That might be included in Dhamma as well, because it's a physical, but it would be a gradient above. Yeah. But the highest level of self-control is, I don't get angry. Yeah. So this is different from, you didn't do anything, and so I'm not angry. This is, something has been done. There is reason to be angry. So usually anger serves the purpose of injustice, right? So let's say there is an injustice, but I still don't get angry. That's the highest level of self-control. So like as anger starts rising, squish, no need. Almost like redirect. Yeah. So it's like when in ChatGPT, when it's given you a direction and then you don't follow it, and you take a turn in. So half the time we know the roads, right? You're just using it to check something or the other. You're looking at me very confused. Maybe only my generation already knows the road, but will still use ChatGPT just to see what's it saying. Then you don't listen to it at all. Then it will say recalculating. So in our head too, like normal path of action would be anger, but immediately we read recalculating. What could we do instead of anger? That's the highest level of control. So self-control is these varying degrees. So here it's not saying you have to have that highest level, huh? Here you're okay to just be able to have medium level of not hitting other people or saying things that will get you into trouble. So kind. Tulsidas ji is so kind. Shankaracharya is not so kind. Huh? Shankaracharya will say that you have to have Shama. You have to have the highest level of self-control to be able to imbibe this knowledge. But here, this is not imbibing this knowledge. This is just being able to move forward towards the goals that we set in life. And so you can see that self-control, like, okay, this I gave the example of anger, but it's everything. Like I want to do something. I decide I'm going to read this incredibly long document that has lots of important details, but in a very wordy way. Although now we can just ask ChatGPT to give us a summary. But sometimes you actually need to read the document. And so easy to get distracted because it's a task that I don't want to do. Yeah. And you should, and this is very easy to notice. We'll get more distracted when there's tasks that we don't like to do. When it's a task we like to do, we don't get distracted. Or even if we get distracted, we come back on point fairly quickly. Mhm. And even what distracts us also. Like, let's say somebody calls and I'm not particularly fond of that person, I don't get distracted. I'm busy, I'll speak to you later. Then somebody calls and you're very fond of this person. So what's been happening? How you been? Then we'll get easily distracted. So see, the mind is such a victim to likes and dislikes. Because we're only getting distracted for tasks we dislike, and we're only getting distracted by things we like. So Dhamma, so that we can stay on point, so that we can move forward. But remember, it's not just distracted. Of course, that's the easy one to understand. It's even self control in terms of things like not given to an emotion, because so much of our well being is how we manage our emotions. And so, Dhamma, to not give in to doing the action of that emotion, even if we're feeling the emotion, not give in to the action of doing that emotion. So, I think I mentioned this last week. We have all these beautiful festivals. Right now, Ganesh Chaturthi going on. So 10 days, practice some immense discipline. Okay, not immense, little bit discipline. So for Ganesh Chaturthi, I am not doing social media. 10 days, doable? Can, right? For some people, that would be like a lot. But 10 days is doable. Yeah. Even though I'm not highly addicted to social media, that alertness of mind, because sometimes somebody will send you a link and you think, oh, what is, and we just, it's social media, you cannot press that link. So Dhamma is the mind having control. But the beautiful thing about having control is I have to remain alert. Sometimes either me or somebody else, and somebody will offer something and then we'll put it in the mouth and we'll think, oh, but I was fasting. I wasn't supposed to eat that. It's not that you didn't want to stick to it. It's just the unalertness of remembering to stick to it. There's a difference, right? It's not that the mind is weak and I can't do it. If I had remembered, I would not do it. But this alertness quality that's a part of Dhamma is where the game changes. So when we talk about everyday success and it talks about self-control, then everyone's going to talk about self-control. Every single psychologist, every single self-help professional, every motivational speaker, what they call life coach, the need to have self-control. But from a spiritual point of view, when developing this quality of self-control, the thing that makes you grow spiritually is more this aspect of staying in alertness. Although we already saw strong mind, we did, right? Yeah. And discipline is very much an ingredient of a mind that is strong. To be able to stick to it, to stick to some kind of discipline. And that requires Dhamma. It's just pushing. So sometimes it's like distraction or not giving in to anger is a don't. But Dhamma can also be a do. So waking up early is a do, which can be very hard. Or taking cold water showers, do. And sometimes when the water is cold, like when we've gone swimming, the person will stand there like this. It went there for ages, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Not want to jump in because not want to have to deal with that feeling of cold. Yep. So Dhamma is both don'ts and do's that help us to stay focused. But remember, it's a horse. And so the horses of the chariots are so that we keep moving forward. Okay, parahita. Parahita is welfare. But here on Dhamma, there's again a nice story. I made sure I read stories for today's class. So in Dhamma, one of the things for Dhamma, it's even in Bal Vihar, we'll use the example of Arjuna. And Arjuna had such incredible aim with his arrow. He could hit the bullseye every single time. And then most of us would have seen Robin Hood and all of those movies as well. So even better than hitting the bullseye is when you are able to hit the arrow and split the arrow that's already in the bullseye. You all have seen this in movies, of course. None of us actually go to archery competition. So movies, we would have seen this. So this young gentleman was this level proficient in archery. And so he had met this Buddhist monk who claimed to have a very powerful, skilled mind. And so he said, but not as skilled as me, because look how good I am. And he could shoot the arrow to split the other arrow when that arrow had hit the bullseye. And so he dares the monk that, okay, come on, beat me. Show me that your mind is stronger than mine. So the monk watches him shoot and watches him be able to accomplish this feat of splitting the arrow. And then he says, okay. Then the young man looks at the monk and says, your turn. And the monk says, okay. And he starts walking. And then he's walking up this mountain path. And 15 minutes in, they cross this landscape where they are now quite high up. And there's just like this one log that somebody has thrown to create a bridge between this bit of the mountain and that bit of the mountain. And so now they're quite high up, and the log is just, well, not built. So it's quite wobbly and unsteady and could break. And the monk happily walks out onto it, takes his arrow, takes his bow, shoots a tree that is somewhat far away, walks back to where the young man is and says, your turn. And the young man puts one foot on the log and realizes it's not steady, like it moves. I cannot put the next foot on the log, jumps straight back and like, how? No, I'm not climbing onto that. You win. The monk wins. Totally, hands down. The monk didn't show that he was better at archery. And so then what he says to the young man is, you have great command over the bow and arrow, but little command over your own mind. Now here, fear would be one. Also the need to boast in this one. And so when we talk about Dhamma, control is also when I know what has to be done, I do it. When I know something's not to be done, I don't do it. And so here it's not that he doesn't have expertise of how to use the mind. And that's so many of us. We know how to use the mind in specific ways. Task-orientated ways. But the quality of Dhamma, which is, of course, we need to control the mind to do those tasks as well. Because to shoot an arrow into the bullseye takes a lot of concentration. But Dhamma is this not task-orientated self-control, but broader who I am self-control. And so again, this very often in the like self-help world, and they'll talk about self-control, and it's like you have to get your goal to, and you have to be self-controlled to get your goal. Great. I want to make $2 million. Great. Self-control so I can do that. I want to be able to run the marathon. Great. Self-control and I'm able to do that. I want to be able to whatever it is. And yes, a certain amount of self-control needed. Here, from a spiritual point of view, though, the self-control isn't so that I accomplish my desire. From a spiritual point of view, accomplishing desire is never the goal. Uplifting who I am is always the goal. And so even all these qualities, right? It's called chariot of success, and we can develop this quality to the extent that it helps me get what I want. And so many people do. In fact, the reason why this text is popular is because we use it to get what we want. But spirituality is not about getting what we want. And that's why probably not so popular, because everyone is so focused on getting what we want. It's about uplifting ourselves, right? So parahita. So Dhamma and then parahita. Parahita is this wonderful welfare for other people. So remember, what brings us forward in life was bala, strength, viveka, discrimination, self-control. And now this seems kind of maybe not inconsistent. Like if you think of somebody should be successful, like if we were sit and think about the qualities we need to be successful, discipline, yes, we'd agree with straight away. Strength, yes, we'd agree with straight away. Vivek, if once we know what it is, yes, and then welfare for others, surely not. I mean, look at people in the world who have done so well for themselves, and we will deem them to be highly selfish. Whether they are or not is, of course, not our. We are not anyone to be judge and jury on them, but of course we do. We make, and then people will so often tell me, like, look at so and so, and they doing, minting money, and then they are so, and then we'll list all their flaws. Like they're not a nice person. Look how beautifully successful they are. And so it would seem like, is this true? Do we really need to have the welfare of other people at heart for us to be able to move forward? Yes. Even if you think about from like a business point of view, and if you make a product and the product is very dodgy, and then you are able to convince people to buy it, but then it falls apart very quickly, then you've lost your reputation, and then you're not able to sustain that growth. Example I can give. Today now, if you plan a holiday anywhere, or even if you're buying a product, most of us now will go into Google and see the reviews on this product, right? Or this destination. And I think with restaurants, hotels, it's huge. The reviews count so much for whether we then go ahead and book there. Now imagine if you didn't do a good job as a hotel, as a restaurant, then the reviews, people will leave reviews, huh? And businesses have closed down when the reviews are very bad. Or when word gets out that this one overcharges, or this one is. So, from a very selfish point of view, as a business, you have to have a decent commodity and you have to do good service. Otherwise, your business will not flourish. But remember, we're not talking even about chariot of success in terms of worldly things. Of course, most people will want worldly things, and it will definitely apply even in the worldly sense. But here we're thinking about our success in terms of spirituality. The essence of spirituality is oneness. And maybe we don't feel oneness with other people. And so stepping stones on how to be able to get there, how to be able to feel oneness. And one of the stepping stones would be to care for other people, to acknowledge that they are also important. Such an interesting thing, right? Like logically speaking, of course, other people are important. But does that logic feature in our thinking when we are dealing with people? Do we actually think they are important? Do we think their welfare is important? When we do, then already our hearts are big and our awareness of the world is that there's far more to this world than just me. Otherwise, there's just me and what I feel and how I think and what I want. And then what about all these other people? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter about them. What matters is what I feel and I think and I want. And then how am I possibly going to see oneness? Because they're not even important. Only I'm important. Yeah. And you know, this sounds like very black and white, and we think nobody's like that. All of us are like that. Not some of us, not just the millennials. All of us. There's moments where we become so absorbed in ourselves and we forget that everyone else is so important. So from a point of view of stepping stone to oneness is even to one, acknowledge their existence, two, to acknowledge their importance. But also, and this lesson we forget far too easily, even though all of us know this lesson. For all of us, in whatever it is that we are seeking, we are always only ever seeking happiness. And formula for happiness. So actually Gurudev gives this formula, some of you might know it. Number of desires fulfilled divided by total number of desires. Have you all heard this formula before? Yes. So let's say I have 10 desires. and I have fulfilled 8, then I should be pretty happy. But if I have 10 desires and I've fulfilled only 3, then I'm not so happy. Um, but this is a very non-practical way of going about happiness, because total number of desires, it's not like it's a constant. Even though there are people who will tell me, all I want, the only thing I want is for this person to get better. That's the only thing I want. It's not true. That's not the only thing you want. It might be the most important thing in that moment in time, but there'll be so many other desires. Switch on AC will be first desire, like, because it's so hot outside. And so there'll be all these small ones. So this formula, even though the formula is great, mathematically very sound, it's impractical in terms of us knowing how many desires we have. And also, it doesn't stay the same, the number of how many desires we have. So then we need now another formula for happiness. Unless you are a sannyasi and you take this formula for happiness and then you decrease number of desires and just keep decreasing number of desires, then you're fine. So then you can join ashram. Next course will be starting probably next year at some point. And then decrease number of desires and be able to increase happiness. So if this is not the route in life that we want to take, then we need another formula for happiness. What's the other formula for happiness, which I know all of y'all know? What's the formula? Y'all didn't hear her. The more we give, the more we get. Giving, not only for the purpose of getting, but giving is what gives happiness. And so here we are, full-time, pursuing our happiness. And what will give us happiness? Giving to others. Giving to others is actually what gives us happiness. But then we forget about others being important and we're only thinking about ourselves, and then we're not thinking about others, and so we're not giving, and then no happiness. In fact, the more we think about ourselves, the less happy we'll be, really. It's endless, this thinking of ourselves. And so in terms of giving, there's so many hundreds and thousands of stories, but I think the one that makes the most impact on us is that you see all these very, very, very rich people. What was Rowling after the Harry Potter series, when she became phenomenally wealthy. Oprah, when her series took off and she got phenomenally wealthy. Or even people born into money like Elvis Presley's daughter. They just have so much money just from birth itself. Yeah. Maybe not all like that are born into money, but definitely the ones who have earned, like Oprah and Rowling and all of that, they'll always start a charity. And so I remember watching this interview between Oprah and it's Rowling, right? Her name is. And they talked about guilt, the guilt of being wealthy, of having money. And so they're giving in charity because of feeling guilty that you have more than others. But they also spoke about like, what you're going to do with it. Like you just can't do that much with it. And no matter how much you do with it, doesn't actually feel like it means anything until you give it, which wasn't guilt. That was very separate from, I feel guilty, I have money, and therefore I'm giving in donation, versus I spend it and it doesn't mean anything, but when I give it, it means something. You'll see this in pretty much all very wealthy people. Huh? Of course, some will give only for tax deductions, but genuinely, more will give because it's more fulfilling to give. And so, parahita gore, the welfare of others. The fullness we feel from somebody else, putting a smile on somebody else's face. So, so there's so many charities that we can give to, but Parahita Gore isn't necessarily translated as charity. Although sometimes it does get translated as charity, a better translation is having welfare at heart. So, example that I can think of is talking to someone who is maybe homeless or performing a duty that we would consider not prestigious, like somebody sweeping the street, like just saying hello to them, how are you, and just treating them like a person. Uh, if you meet them on a regular basis, then learning their name, so that when you talk to them using their name, rather than somebody who's to be avoided or overlooked. So, like giving that care, right, is parahita gore, would be one of the first steps. Yes, I spoke about ER rolling, and I spoke about Oprah giving hundreds and thousands in charity, but it's not just giving because I have. It's actually very important here that I care. So, and then, how to care, it's interesting because we can learn by watching what touches our heart. So, for example, if I meet somebody and maybe I'm sneezing, coughing, not even something horrendous, huh? And then the next day they message, hope you're feeling better. Then you think, oh. Now, if I feel that way when they've done that, then note to do it next time to somebody else. So when people have made us feel like we matter, then to repeat those actions for all and sundry. Yeah. And then it might feel a little bit rehearsed initially, and then anything when enough practice is done becomes second nature. And so here it's this training ourselves to pay more attention and then put in effort. So remember, so many of these qualities, this alertness of mind, pay more attention, put in effort. And then also how we do it, right? Like sometimes we can be awkward, or like we intend to do it well, but we don't know how to go about it. And then you see somebody else do it and they do it so smooth. And so learn how they do it, which was so smooth. And the choice of the words or the body language or the tone and we copy. And so here too, there's this story of this family, and the story is obviously outdated because none of these things ever exist anymore. This family is going to the circus, and they're standing in the queue to buy the ticket for the line is huge. And so you can imagine like circus coming into town, those old days, maybe once in 2 years, 3 years, and everybody's so incredibly excited. And so there's this family of about 8 people. And so they're standing very well behaved, 2 by 2, and neatly behind each other. And the people, the father and son standing behind this family is observing, the son is observing. And they obviously not a well-to-do family, because you can tell from their clothes and their general demeanor, and the kids are so excited, so excited, so excited to see the clowns and to see the just the candy machine and the all of it, like super super, like this is probably the first time ever they are coming to see the circus. And so the gentleman gets to the counter and says, I'd like a ticket for 2 adults and 6 kids. And the lady says, that will be, and whatever the amount would have been. And he freezes because maybe he had read in the flyer some other amount, and maybe he had planned for another amount, but now you can see the color just totally drain from his face, because here the kids are already standing in the line and so this boy watches his father take out a $20 bill from his and drop it on the ground. And then picks it up and taps the father that's at the counter and says, I think you dropped this when you pulled out your wallet. And so smooth. Like, don't make it a big show. Don't make it like how'd you even think of that? To go up and say, here, let me pay would be so different, right? And so many times we'll watch somebody do something and it will be like so smooth. Mm-hmm. Make a file in your head of those incidences so that you can copy them as best as you can. So here, he did take the $20 bill because the kids were so excited and he didn't have the heart to disappoint them. And they bought their tickets and they went off to the circus. But now this father didn't have to buy for him and his son. And so they got back into the car and they drove home. And so the story is being narrated by the son. And he said, it was a far better day than if I had watched the circus. Because of course you're going to feel amazing about your father, right? When you see this kind of an act, and the smile the father would have had that he would be able to do it. And of course, all those kids so excitedly going into the circus. So Parahita Gore. So here too, like this watchfulness of how others do things and how we do things, and then assessing how we can be more caring. Essentially, this is assessing how we can be more caring. Something very, very, very needed in today's world. We used to be socialized to be caring. Like if you see the old black and white movies, your neighbor brought soup. Unfortunately, it's chicken soup. We are vegetarians when, you are sick. We've seen these kind of examples being shown in movies, but that's so gone in today's world. Like in those days, we were socialized to be caring because we lived in smaller communities. But when cities become big, it's harder to maintain human connect, and we are no longer socialized to be caring. We, in fact, get socialized to be consumers, being done by corporates. Corporates are socializing us to be consumers. And then they invest so much money in socializing us to be consumers. And so even the same amount of effort that they are putting in, we should be putting in to socialize ourselves to be caring, attentive, courageous, self-controlled. Bala Viveka, Dhammahita Gore. These are the forces. We'll read it. We haven't read it today. So Rajati Rajata Hirata Taka Chaka. Satya Shila Drida Dwaja Pataka. Bala Viveka Dhamma Parahita Gore. Shama Kripa Samadha Rajagore. And then now the reins. So even in the Bhagavad Gita, there's 3 reins. Here too, there are 3 lanes. Shama is forgiveness. Kripa is compassion. And Samatva is equipoise. And we can start on those next week. That's 8. We can pause here. Any questions?
Is there any goals?
Any?
Goals
Are they ghosts?
by this scripture?
Yeah, apparently they are. I have had no experience with ghosts, but apparently they exist. Because Shiva, Shivji hangs with ghosts. And in Hanuman Chalisa also there's that line, Bhuta Pisacha Nikate Nahi Aave. So yeah, they exist.
Are they doing bad things?
Are they doing bad? Mostly no. I mean, there's all types of humans. There's all types of ghosts. Can they affect you? Not really. Very rare. Very rare they will affect us. Usually each one's own vasanas, right? They pursuing their own vasanas. But there's so many different beings that, don't have bodies that we wouldn't consider ghosts, right? Like guardian angels and our ancestors, and we don't consider them ghosts. They just exist in celestial realm or in subtle realm without physical bodies. So they're just another species of existence, ghost.
We usually describe ghosts as doing bad things. Soul is like similar, spirits.
No, I think that's just horror movies. Like movies that's such a terrible narrative, like sharks, aren't actually horrible. But there's now so many movies, no, not just Jaws. After that, also they've made other movies painting sharks to be very vicious, but they're not. and dolphins to be very friendly, but dolphins can be vicious. Yeah, they can be very friendly also. They can be very sweet also. Um, yeah, so movies paint goes to be like that. They're just doing their own thing. Mostly they just doing their own thing. Because when we are alive, we mostly just doing our own thing, not bothering with anyone. Yeah. Same. Ghost also. Mostly just doing their own things. Of course, if you go and get a Ouija board and then invoke them, then problem. Or if you get involved in black magic and all of that, then you've opened a can of worms. Then you have to deal with worms. But if you leave them be, they'll leave you be. From the whole class, the only thing you remembered is ghost. The power of stories.
See, control.
You don't have to.
I mean the next question. Next not being angry. Like ChatGPT. Because we know ChatGPT is AI, not good. We don't care. Even ChatGPT give us a wrong answer. We focus on doing something, not being angry with GPT. Because GPT is not. We don't care.
You can get angry with non-human things. You can get angry with your computer. You can get angry with. Get angry with the table for being in the way. But yeah, it's a nice mindset to have that it's not human. Don't get angry with it. And anger's not logical. So you have to use logical thinking to control it. Because anger itself is not logical. But yeah, today's Ganesh puja is going on. Some celebrate only for one day, so yesterday was the day. Some will do for 10 days. So you can do some small puja, bhajan, something in the 10 days. It's festival season, no? Then next month, Navratri, then next month, Diwali. Lots of occasions to take up a tapas. One of the virtues, values, and see how you can practice it, play with it. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit kapag bhave, asato ma satkamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityarma mritamgamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Namaha. Hari